This was my first proper overnighter with a full solar cargo bike system. 160 kilometers, 2 e-bike batteries, cooking, internet, 12-volt power, and one question: is the sun enough to actually go independent? Eventually, I want to be able to travel without depending on campsites, charging points, or other fixed infrastructure. I want to take my e-bike where no e-bike has happily gone before. This trip was the first real test. Most importantly, I wanted to know if all of this would actually make the day easier.
Did I unlock the damn thing? Did not unlock the damn thing.
The forecast said that the weather would generally be fine. It also said that it would be mostly cloudy. There was supposed to be some sun during the morning and perhaps again later in the afternoon. I changed the bicycle battery relatively early so that I could recharge it from the main 12-volt system. I had to take energy out before charging it made sense again. At around 11 o'clock, I found a suitable clearing and stopped for the first proper break. This was also a good opportunity to show how the system was organized. At the front of the bike, I had the electric Lunchbox on top of the 5G box. The 5G box provides the internet connection, but it also acts as an accessible distribution point. It has outlets on the outside, including one that lets me charge my phone while I am riding, and later I can connect the Lunchbox. The larger box at the back is the actual power core. Inside, there is a 50 amp hour lithium battery, 2 solar charge controllers, the main fuses and the wiring that connects the panels, the bicycle chargers and the other equipment. It is not exactly a polished consumer product when you open it, but it works. The sun was excellent. What I had not remembered was sunscreen. To keep the panels at the right angle, I made a few very simple pegs. They are just 6mm ABS rods with a washer, nothing sophisticated. But they are light, take up almost no space, and keep the panels where I put them. During a break of roughly 1 hour, I collected around 170 watt-hours. That was important. I still had a long way to go, but I had made sure that at least one of the bicycle batteries could be recharged and I could complete the return journey. For a while, I simply enjoyed the ride. I started thinking about what makes a perfect day on a bicycle. For me, it's often the long, monotonous stretches. The parts where nothing particularly dramatic happens. You keep moving, the road continues in front of you, and after a while the ride becomes something close to meditation. Then, of course, the navigation system sent me onto a dirt track where I had to get off and push. Apparently, every unpaved path becomes scenic as soon as you select bicycle navigation. They may be perfectly reasonable on a normal bicycle. With a long cargo bike carrying batteries, solar panels and camping equipment, they felt rather less reasonable. So I have a genuine question. Does anyone know a navigation system that understands that a heavily loaded cargo bike does not consider every dirt path scenic and every narrow highway crossing acceptable? Anyway, the ride was beautiful, and in the early afternoon I reached the campsite. And there was nobody there. So I stood there and looked around for a while, hoping that someone might eventually materialize from somewhere in the forest. Then I found a sign saying that the campsite would open in an hour. The weather, meanwhile, had done almost exactly what the forecast predicted. Much of the day had been cloudy, but when I arrived around 3 in the afternoon, the sun came out again. Fortunately, there was an open area across the road and I set everything up on a quiet, empty parking lot. I unfolded the panels again and continued charging for another 3 hours. That proved to be the right thing to do. The campsite itself was deep inside the forest and almost completely shaded. That provided an important planning lesson. A forest campsite may be beautiful, but it is not necessarily a solar campsite. The bike had to remain across the road until around 8 in the evening because that was where the sunlight was. By then I had generated roughly 700 watt-hours during the day. That was considerably more than I had expected from a forecast that said mostly cloudy. It was enough to recharge the system, put useful energy back into the bicycle batteries, and heat up a warm chili for dinner. I still have to find a better way to lock things up for the night, though. Inside the tent, once I had gotten everything halfway organized, I could continue working and planning on the laptop. I could charge my phone, run the lights, and remain properly connected. The internet connection was not merely usable, it was fast. Not everyone needs a dedicated 5G router while camping. But people like me tend to receive work calls at the most inconvenient possible moments. For that, it slightly feels like life insurance. It will also become an important part of the system for remote video production and live streaming. The only device I could not recharge was my watch, but that was because I had forgotten to bring the cable. At night, there were hedgehogs in the hedge, and at 5 in the morning, the crows decided that sleeping time was over. So I made coffee. These small 12-volt cooking systems tend to reward patient people. But in the morning, patience is not my cup of tea. So I decided to try something new and put the immersion heater into the 12-volt kettle. The battery system was built to handle the combined current. I placed everything on a stable board, kept it upright, and watched it carefully. And it worked. The combination heated the water much faster than the kettle could manage on its own. This only works if you watch it carefully, turn it off before removing it, and have a safe place to put it down. Breakfast was oats with cocoa powder and powdered milk. A magnificent camping recipe. It had started to rain, but I was inside the tent. I had coffee, warm breakfast, electricity, internet, and all the time in the world. By the time I had finished eating and packed everything away, it was already around 10 o'clock. The sky was completely overcast. I set off into several hours of cool riding in headwinds. Unsurprisingly, almost no useful solar energy was coming in while I was moving. The forest was also a good reminder of why I want to be able to cook without an open fire. In summer, these dry pine forests can burn like tinder. Half an hour before lunchtime, I stopped and put some white beans in the lunchbox. Then I continued my ride for a while, thinking about the bacon I had lost to the heat. It would have been good with the beans. By lunchtime, warm food was very welcome.
Steaming hot beans.
In the afternoon, I stopped again and swapped batteries. Under that cloudy sky, I had collected only around 100 watt-hours. Not much. Solar charging can give the bicycle more range, but only if I give it time. To gain a useful amount of distance, I need to spend 2 or 3 hours in the right place with the panels properly deployed where the sun is actually available. But the principle appears to work. Even with a mostly cloudy forecast, I generated around 700 watt-hours on the first day, and shortly before I reached home, the evening sun came out again. Had it been necessary, I could have stopped once more and continued charging. This trip did not prove complete independence, but it showed me something more useful. The bicycle could begin to carry its own infrastructure and eventually take me where no e-bike has happily gone before. Or maybe next time, I'll just take my family camping.